and welcome to Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. Today we're welcoming back one of my favorite guests, and many of you know who I'm talking about, and that is Adali Stevenson III. Because everyone says, he's still around, Adali Stevenson? And I said, yes, I have the third on my show. I haven't met the fourth, and I haven't met the fifth. I know the fourth is your son, the fifth is your grandson. The first, of course, was the vice president under Grover Cleveland. That was your great-grandfather. And then your father was Adali II under himself. He was the governor of the state of Illinois, and you, of course, were the senator of Illinois. And I want to welcome you back to Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. I just want to open with this. Politics, and this is written by, from your black book. It is a quote from your black book. Andrew Oliver in 1810 said this: "Politics is the most hazardous of all professions," and this, by the way, is the black book. And we have a lot of quotes. Instead of having it stand like we did last time, I'm going to do a little bit of quoting out of this book. So I just want to begin with, "Politics is the most hazardous of all professions. There is not another in which man can hope to do so much good to his fellow creatures. Neither is there any in which by a mere loss of nerve he may do so widespread harm. With all temptations and degradations that beset it, politics is still the noblest career any man can choose." Again, that's Andrew Oliver, 1810. Do you still feel it is one of the noblest careers that man can choose? The noblest career.
There's more power for good and for evil in politics, and it's a hard, trying business. As I've discovered a few times.
Because we were talking earlier about politics and what has changed and what hasn't changed and how the media is running our political system. And I know that you have, and I better mention this or your wife is going to be not too happy about it because she helps run the Adali Stevenson Center on Democracy. And this is one of the places where I, as a person that works on television and moderates the TV show, I get a lot of my information because this center, I get the real information. I don't get somebody's information that I'm watching on television. It's their point of view. This, you have the most amazing guests on during your people that present and discuss. And this is the Adali Stevenson Center for Democracy, and it was formed to enhance the global understanding and practice of democracy. And through lively discussions and presentations, the Stevenson Center engages people for amazing dialogues. I mean, you've had Russ Feingold, you had a wonderful man, two men that came in and talked about water, because water is going to be the commodity. We talk about, where are we going to get our oil, but eventually it's where we're going to get our water.
I think we had a spokesman from Highland Park.
Yeah,
water district.
They were really good, and they really, those are the people that, are really telling us what really is happening, and not somebody that's making it, wanting to sound like it's happening because maybe their goal is to promote their politics or promote something like Super PAC or whatever. These are the real people. So I encourage anybody to get on the mailing list. I think there is a website.
Yeah.
And to get in, so you can go to these discussions at the Adali Stevenson Center for Democracy, and it's on our website right now, which is www.adali3.com. And
that's my website. Adali Stevenson Center has another website.
Oh, okay. But if they
and
can
it's upstreamed by WBEZ. Our programs are. So
okay, but if they can't, they can get it through you too. So you may have a lot of people calling you. One of the things we also talked about at lunchtime, I mean, things is so different of what's going on today and what's happened yesterday. And I wanted to, this was something that was I've been having difficulty with it, and that's what happened in Connecticut and what happened with the guns. And you had some really point of view. I know just recently, today, we got out of after a 1996 shooting, a massacre in Australia, enacted strict gun laws. It hasn't had a similar massacre since. So you're talking about that happened in the Sandy Hook school shooting, and you're talking about guns and what people should be doing and what the government should be doing about it.
Yeah. Well, it's not just Australia. Norway had an incident and immediately took action to restrict access to handguns. All of the other developed countries have strict controls of weapons, especially the handgun. That's the crime gun. And they all have much lower levels of crime, including gun-related crime. The principal crime gun is the handgun. It's not the rifle. We hear about the rifle, and clearly these assault weapons should be redefined to include these very high-velocity, big magazine weapons that are for military purposes. You don't, need an AK-47 to shoot deer. But the handgun is really the crime gun, and other countries take different means of controlling them. The Great Britain, for example, outlaws all ownership of handguns. Police in London don't have to have handguns. Very low levels of crime. So I think that's where we really ought to focus. I tried many years ago to establish a national system, not just local, but national, for the registration of handguns and the handgun owners, to try to keep them out of the hands of those who might misuse them, but also to give the police a charge when they find somebody with an unregistered handgun. And sometimes they pick up weapons in connection with a crime and that can be traced back to the perpetrator of that crime if you have a system for registering the handguns. I think there are other problems, other formulas, but whatever the problem is, it's our politics. It's the basic problem. Our politicians
are you talking about the NRA, the National Rifle Association?
It doesn't take much to intimidate politicians.
Well, why are they why is everybody, the NRA, Norquist, why are people, one person, Norquist, he's controlling the Republican Party, and then here we got the NRA is controlling all the gun laws it isn't just gun laws in one of the states, it's in all the United States. How are they so powerful? How do these people, they say they have a very strong lobby. What do you mean by a strong lobby? You mean thousands of people come and come into the Congress, and what are they doing that they can't be controlled?
Well, I go into this in my book, in the Black Book.
And here is the Black Book that we always talk about, by the way.
The breakdown of, among other things, of party organization. We once had some security and comfort in party organization. Party organization is broken now. And instead, politicians live in this vacuum, and the media has changed. There were systemic changes in our politics, our political system during the 70s, as everything became more episodic and more visual with television, and more expensive. So the money starts pouring in, and it pours in from the NRA, not only into the campaigns, but into the lobbying, into K Street if it's Washington, into all of the states. State governments are being bought up, and now they're cheaper than the national government.
Are you saying
so
that
it's
the
a symptomatic.
Are politicians
I
being
used
bought?
to wear the enmity of the NRA. They used to put crosshairs on my forehead all over Illinois like a badge of honor. I think it's a paper tiger then, but now we've got politicians who are paper tigers. Maybe after this horrible incident, and after the humiliation for the country, every other country, I leave aside the Congo and a few others, to take these elementary steps to protect not just school kids, but all of us. There are 30 handgun homicides every day in the United States. You mentioned just, 20 kids. Every other country, but the president says it's a complex subject. It's not complex for Australia or for any of the Europeans, let alone Japan, any other developed country. Our politics is the problem, no matter what the issue is. Now, hopefully, with the NRA in retreat, and hopefully with the president, we really depend in this country on a strong president. President Obama will realize this isn't complex, but it does require some strong presidential leadership. Without that, I don't think the Congress has ever been capable of acting in a responsible, comprehensive way, especially on really complex issues like health care, but this is an easy one, without strong presidential leadership.
Yeah, because these in fact, my daughter just recently wrote in her, she has a blog called Guerrilla Warfare, and she wrote that guns should not be sold to minors, the mental history of gun purchasers must be thoroughly investigated, and there should no longer wait periods to examine criminal records at the very least. And the whole internet ammo purchasing is out of control because people are getting the ammunition, in the internet. They're selling it over the internet, but also that people that want to get guns, no matter they want to get guns, they want to get drugs, they want to rob a bank. It's very easy to do.
You can export them too. It's a big business, exporting guns. Export them to the drug runners in Mexico.
And maybe we need our teachers need some basic what to do in case of a terrorist attack training. The teachers need better training. The children need what to do in case of a terrorist attack or in case somebody comes into their school. And maybe each of the doors of the classroom needs to have a lock on it. The kids can get out of the classroom, but somebody from outside can't get into the classroom. I know this is a lot of controls that we're doing, but, for the safety of our children, we need to do that.
I hate to see our schools turned into fortresses and have teachers with pistols. Those pistols will get on the loose, too. The best thing is to get rid of the pistols, period. They don't have to fortify their schools in any other developed country. It shouldn't be necessary in this country.
But we have never had things like this so bad. I mean, we had...
No, it won't be the last either.
Yeah, we had so many different... We had recently a mall, a theater. At first they had in a mall, they had a theater that they were watching. Some gunmen came into the theater. Virginia Tech. I mean, there's been a lot of, and this is the worst. This is 20 little children that are like 5, 6, 7 years old.
I think, Suzanne, it's also part of our culture. We're very violence prone. Our television features violence. Violence is all around us. I don't think that's quite as true in other countries. So maybe a little more restraint on the part of the media. There are many dimensions, but the most elementary is gun control.
They even talked about the young man. You're right about this because the young man who was 20 years old, he was in a club that they did a lot of television. They did a lot of games that was video games that he belonged to that were shooting and killing. And I mean, the Xbox and all these things. In fact, I just bought an Xbox for my grandchildren. Now I'm worried about what are they really watching in that Xbox? What are they really doing? Maybe they're probably having games where they're killing one another, on the screen. And this is what we're giving our children. This is what this is the games that are, when we had games when we were kids, we played Monopoly and those type of games. Cootie. I remember Cootie. They made me build a little bug, and there were games that we could sit around a board and play. We played chess, we played checkers, we played cards. I mean, what are the games that we're giving our children? What are they learning?
Well, in other countries, China, for example, they don't have time to play games. They're going to school from early morning till 10-hour school days, and the school day isn't over when you get home. That's when the homework starts. 10 months out of the year, we could be doing much more in our schools, maybe lengthening the school year, but especially preschool and after school programs, as in other countries, to give those children some exposure to, the kind of education, the kind of environment, the kind of culture that they're going to need if they're going to be law-abiding and productive citizens of a great country. We need to take education a little bit more seriously in the United States, like the Chinese do.
Well, in Finland, Finland, we did a show on Finland, and that was the number one school system, and they do have very little homework at night because, as you say, they start early, they end late, and they get all their homework, they get everything right in, they do that in school, and then they come home
and look at the their international tests and rankings of student proficiency. We rank very, very low in comparison to not just the other developed countries, but to most countries.
So that would be one thing that we can do. We could, we have to get our laws passed. It seems like the people want to get the laws passed.
It all gets back to our
and
politics.
we're having a hard time with the politicians. And, and in fact, the Black Book says politics is the noblest of callings with most potential for good and for evil than any other profession. And your dad said, what wins is more important than who wins. And these are some of these wonderful quotations. What is the use of being elected or re-elected unless you stand for something?
Well, for my father, democracy was not a system for winning elections. It was a system for informing the people so that they could make a sound judgment. This gets back to our discussion of guns. It wasn't an issue in those days, but in those politics, a candidate, as I always did, would try to inform the people about what we need to do to keep guns, out of the hands of everybody and reduce the levels of violent crime. And if you can't convince the people, if the NRA, well, then you lose. But you don't lose your self-respect. You don't you don't betray your country.
You're right, because when he said, this is interesting that you came out with it, when Adelaide 2 reforms were blocked in the legislature, he appealed directly to the people through weekly radio programs, winning support for a gas tax increase, for better roads. He's idealism with muscle, he called it. Idealism with muscle.
That's a word somebody else called him, but I hate to tell you, it was a little bit more complicated than that. He did reform state government, and he did appeal to the people in radio programs, and they did respond. But remember, this was the old politics. Some of our reforms, and I was a reformer, had results that we didn't fully expect. He had 30,000 Republicans to fire and replace with good Democrats. Now that gave him some muscle. If those members of the legislature, wanted some patronage, they had to play ball. Now my great-grandfather, great-grandfather Adali won.
Yeah.
I
like this book.
Well, he fired 40,000 Republican postmasters under Grover Cleveland's first administration, replacing them with good Democrats. And for that, he was, in part for that, he was rewarded with the nomination for Vice President of the United States. So We eliminate. My father put the state police under civil service for the
Right,
first,
I see that.
first time.
Right. Under merit
So
system.
some
under
of
the
our
merit
reforms
system, right.
had, then Democrats had to compete not with shoe leather in the precincts the way we used to. My father's campaign for governor cost $157,000. That's all. We could compete in the precincts, at the factory gates, but we no longer had any, of that old-fashioned patronage. Then comes a higher level kind of patronage. And you start the Blagojevich kind of politics. You start marketing public policy. You start marketing high-level positions. His people were his administration was peopled by first-rate
Because he
public.
Right, because he recruited. I remember reading this. He recruited professionals and academics from outside of the sphere of politician and their allies in labor and business. And he even recruited a Professor Willard Wirtz of the Northwestern University Law School, asking him to become the chairman of the liquor control. And he said, "I know nothing about liquor." To which Adali too replied, "You know how to keep your fingers out of people's pockets, don't you? Well, that's all you need to know." And I thought
Willard
that
Wirtz went on to become Secretary of Labor. They all went on, or almost all of them went on to serve at high positions in the Kennedy and Johnson
it didn't sound as much patronage. Maybe he had a few of them, but he really
The patronage was at a menial level, caretakers at state institutions. Now it's at a policy level. It gets marketed to the campaign contributors. And even after the campaign is all over, then the lobbyists pour in. In the old days, strange as it may seem, we had party organization, and party organization to some extent was rooted in patronage at a much lower level.
Right, and patronage now is on a high level, and that's why the wrong people get in. And we wonder why our politics and what we're trying to, good people trying to obey laws, and why they're not putting, why things are a mess like what's going on right now. And I mean,
Obama and Romney each raised and spent over $1 billion.
Look what that money could have done. The money could have helped people with mental disorders. In fact, your father did he helped appalling conditions in mental institutions. I mean, look at the man that shot, the young man, 20 years old. I mean, he had a serious mental disorder. And I mean, how many people are walking around without any help because there's no institutions, not good places for these people?
And now we're threatening to cut back on many of the programs that could benefit the disadvantaged, including our schools. Some of this needs to be, we need more psychologists to help with disturbed kids, and one of the avenues or venues for delivery of those services could be through the schools, and I think especially in preschool and after school programs. But that's where we start to cut back. Other countries take education, therefore democracy, much more seriously than we do. I think all of the developed countries do, not to mention some of the underdeveloped like China.
But look at all the like you said, billions and billions of dollars was raised for an election, which it's beyond me. Like we were talking earlier, other European countries, each person gets 200. People that are running get $250,000. 6-week campaign.
And we spend as much as all the rest of the world on war and weapons.
And for what?
We haven't won one in a long time.
Right. And I mean, it seems like the war is going on in our own United States, war against each other. It's horrendous. And I mean, I'm still, thinking I can't get my thoughts about what happened in Connecticut and how much we need these new laws. And what do you feel? We have a few minutes left on our show. What do you feel? 5 minutes left, thank you. What do you feel that, how can we get this through? I mean, if we have a block like the NRA that can't, they're so strong, they have such a strong lobby, how can we skip over them and just do what's right? What are your feelings about this?
Well, that's one of the reasons we created the Stevenson Center on Democracy. We're trying to bring what I call practitioners together from all the rest of the world, as well as to address systemic problems that we all face. They're doing, in many respects, a better job than we are. It gets back to our politics, and then I think you have to get back to money, and there are a lot of ways in which we could reduce money, not only at the federal level, but the state governments are being picked off also. For one thing, we just shorten the campaigns. You could have all your primaries on, say, 3 dates starting in June. We could also shorten the ballot. Why do we have to elect people to issue license plates? No other country outside of Bolivia, the radical government of Bolivia, even elects judges, as we do at the state level. Money is pouring in even to our judiciary at the state level. Getting the money out of politics has been made much more difficult by the Supreme Court, but hopefully it will, reconsider its Citizen United case, and whether it's through partial public financing of campaigns or other means, we need to drain the money out of, cut it back. And public financing might be one way of doing it, within these very difficult constitutional
So if people stop, you're saying is the congressmen are somehow getting influenced because of the money to vote a certain way, like you said, the NRA, which is has a very strong vote, if they get the money out of politics, so to speak, maybe our senators and our congressmen will vote from their hearts and know what, but I don't, do you see that happening? Do you think that, money is power?
That's the question. Can a corrupt politics decorrupt itself? Now, hopefully, I'm still optimistic that with President Obama reelected, wiser for 4 years, no prospect of reelection, and incidents like this to unite the country and to send the NRA into retreat, maybe he will be emboldened to give us more leadership. Clinton was the first Democratic president of the new era of money and of tactics. Before that, we had great bursts of energy and idealism, like a New Deal and a Fair Deal and a Great Society, the New America. Maybe a New America of my father, that was the label on the program. He really laid the programmatic foundation for the new frontier and the Great Society. Maybe Obama will pull himself together now and give us a little more leadership.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I would hope that he would do that, but he needs more than just him. We always talk about our president as the leader, but there's we got the Congress, we got the Supreme Court. We have a check and balance system, and we need their vote. We need their confidence. One man can't do it all. And
Congress can't do it without a president.
Right, and a president can't do it without Congress. I think it works both ways.
Franklin Roosevelt understood that. And Lyndon Johnson, I heard Lyndon Johnson in a conversation with my father say, "This is my moment." And it took him 100 days to ram the new frontier through the Congress.
Well, Adali, Senator Stevenson, it has been wonderful. I could see our credits rolling, and we have so much more to talk about, and you've been an amazing guest, and I welcome you back.
Thank you,
again.
Susan.
We're going to talk again, and we really need to get to some of it, and I hope that some of the things that we have talked about will come to pass, because after what happened at the school, the children and the teachers and the principal, we really need Congress, we need our president, we need the people to act on this. This is very, very sad.
The people in the end.